welcome to UC Today. I'm Susie Harrison, Head of Content, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Goodwill, who is Strategic Partner Manager and Solutions Specialist at Symity. So thank you, Chris, for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me to come along. Pleasure to be with you.
So today our conversation is delving into Microsoft Dynamics 365's AI capabilities.
Sure.
So let's jump in and ask an important question about the capabilities that it's bringing us. How does the Copilot element enhance agent productivity in Dynamics 365 Contact Center?
Yeah, so the way I talk about Dynamics 365 Contact Center is having Copilot as a superpower, and it's across different personas. But for the agent specifically, what we're looking to do is try and drive faster resolution of customer queries. So as we're using, or some of us are using Copilots in our day-to-day kind of M365 world where it's working alongside us, in the same way, Copilot works in Dynamics 365 Contact Center and is helping with surfacing articles for the agent to be able to help. It will also start off with timeline highlights, so it can show them what's happened with that customer before during kind of multiple transactions. At the end of a engagement from a customer to an agent, I need to be careful now because we've got agents, we've got customers, and we've got customer service reps. But if we talk about it being the customer and the customer service rep, then Copilot will essentially give them a summarization at the end of that. That will go into a customer relationship management platform, whether that's Dynamics 365 or whether it's a third party, and mean that it's there like a summarization, can have transcription, translation, etc. All of those things are time saving. That's what we're driving towards essentially with Copilot, time savings.
And it's also that frustration level, isn't it? I think we all remember calling a call center and going through 5 different people repeating your case,
Yes.
your circumstance, and then wanting to,
Yeah,
manually listen more.
the context flow is super important. That's something I've
Yeah.
talked about a lot actually, and illustrated it with examples that we've all got where we've spoken to contact centers, and that first point, we provide information, and that could be digital or it could be human, and then we go to someone else, and then we go to another modality, and the context doesn't move. So with this platform, all of that context from the initial customer, the customer contact is provided to the agent. So they're not having to look at multiple platforms. Typically, contact center agents have been using multiple platforms
Yeah.
to try and inform how they help a customer. And with this platform, because of Copilot having access to those knowledge bases, databases, wherever the information is, it can pull it all through. And so the agent's already hopefully ahead of the game, and they don't have to say, "Please, could you explain that again, Mr. Customer?" So
Yeah.
yeah.
And which contact center scenarios benefit the most from Copilot in Dynamics 365 Contact Center?
Um, I think like reducing the amount of time means that high volume contact centers essentially where they're just dealing with volumes. Copilot providing things like drafting of emails, drafting of chats, that cuts down time. So that in itself is not necessarily a specific scenario, but in volumes, Copilot drives efficiencies. What it can also help with, though, is the complex. So the complex queries, we think about those, we're giving back time to the agent and they will do all the complex, but actually Copilot will go further than just doing those basics. So as I was describing there, where there's multiple platforms, it can look at all of those knowledge sources and it can look at the interactions from the customer and it can pull them all together. So it may be there's been multiple cases going on. It could be, let's think about like a social service situation where there's been issues raised and cases raised and transcribed, etc. But for the agent to have that full holistic view of everything that's gone on, Copilot can really drive some assistance. Something that's not, we don't talk about it that much or we don't focus on it, but I'll mention it, is actual agent onboarding and training. So in a kind of traditional contact center, we'd be looking at a new agent coming in fresh and then having to get up to speed. And that process for any organization wouldn't be like 5 days, 2 weeks even. It'd be longer than that. It'd probably be, 2 to 3 months at least for them to get a good grounding, working alongside a colleague who helps them. That could be someone who's senior, to give them advice on how to help customers. Straight from day one, Copilot's there. And it has access to all the information, all the knowledge bases. So if specifically there are knowledge base articles that would help an agent in terms of onboarding, then it can help them on their journey as they're trying to help customers and make those suggestions. So essentially, you're cutting down that onboarding and training time, like really shrinking it down. It could be, I would think like 2 to 3 weeks, for an agent to really feel comfortable, providing they take advantage of Copilot.
Yeah.
Another thing, kind of scenario based, is escalations and handoff. Is if we think about that, the digital to the human is, we've already talked about it loosely, but actually having, when the customer pulls the trigger, so to speak, and doesn't want to deal with the digital, as in isn't wanting to deal with AI upfront for self-service, and they want to speak to someone, the handoff of that information to the agent, Copilot having that, providing those summarizations, providing those highlights, will just mean the agent instantly knows where they are with the customer rather than any kind of revisit.
Yeah. So I think wherever AI is in a loop, we need to think a little bit about security, privacy, compliance. So how would you handle data privacy and compliance concerns when using AI within Dynamics 365 Contact Center?
Yeah, so it has been and is a topic of conversation generally raised by organisations. Doesn't matter what size they are as well, whether they're small, mid-market, large enterprise. It's generally a topic that comes up. The main concern is, are we training Microsoft's large language models or a third-party model in some way? What's happening to our data? Is the data being passed over to OpenAI? And that's not the case. So, all of the customers' data sits within the Microsoft Dataverse, and so there is this kind of location and control really that can take place. So, and within the platform itself, the information you want to surface to Copilot and to agents to be able to use and utilize, you can ring fence those, so you can curate them so that it's not, we're generally not looking at the platform just doing generative AI back to the agent or back to a customer. It's based on trusted knowledge sources that there are. The other thing to bear in mind, I suppose, is also kind of role-based access. Is within the platform we can define those roles, so who has access to what. That could be multiple levels, it could be some functions within an organisation. Say if it was internal contact centre, so it's more like HR function, what access would they have, what files and structures would they be able to reach, whereas customer facing agents, it would be different. So all of those things can be defined. General best practice, AI is super important, obviously, for Microsoft, and a responsible approach to it. So, they do, essentially the platform, Dynamics 365 as a stack, meets things like GDPR, HIPAA, ISO 27001. So yeah, I think the key thing is that people are worried. Well, in some circumstances, customers want to know, we don't want to use Copilot yet, and that's possible as well. So you don't have to use it in the platform. You can just use this as a more modern omnichannel platform, and it can bring lots of other benefits. But if you want the Copilot on, it can be switched on, and the data can be controlled.
And so you've touched on best practices a bit there, but what best practices would you recommend for agents and supervisors to get the most value from the AI features in Dynamics 365?
I think, again, it was kind of buzzword bingo around prompting and promptathons and all of that good stuff that goes on in the world. But I think for agents, then that's just as important. So being able to leverage and use Copilot themselves then requires them thinking and using natural language in how they pose questions to Copilot to help them. You've then got the fact that if Copilot is there, use it. And what we've seen with some customers is you can identify groups who are delivering better customer service in a higher quality way and in a faster, more efficient way because they're using Copilot. So if they're not using Copilot, then you can definitely see patterns emerging. And that helps supervisors and service leaders because they can look at kind of retraining or buddying up of people who are succeeding and the ones who aren't succeeding. Providing feedback into the platform's also important. So where responses and suggestions are good and those help resolve the queries, then the agents actually thumbs up feedback into the platform will help us just inform whether that was a successful answer, and then that rises through the ranks as a suggested knowledge article or a suggested response. So the platform will constantly learn. I mentioned there kind of about training. Then for service leaders, then really they need to look at. Obviously, we've got all the usual kind of analytics that are going on in terms of just call handling, call duration, and first-time resolution, etc. What you do get from the platform, though, is quite detailed information on sentiment analysis, and that's really important to look at that customer journey and see how sentiment analysis was, and looking at it not individually, then looking at scale as well. So for service leaders, looking at kind of operations for a contact center, are there pockets where maybe it's not to do with agent performance, maybe it's to do with the workflow and how the customer's journey comes in and goes out, and it's causing frustration for some reason. So yeah, I think embracing AI is the main thing. I think curation, I'll just mention that at the end actually, curation of information. So things like, knowledge base articles can be generated autonomously.
Right.
So based on a certain situation and the best resolution, then an article can be generated and then that can be injected into the knowledge base. So that grows and it just learns over time. And that does require some intervention. And the reason is, it's not that we don't trust it, it's just that we want to verify. So again, it's like we want to make sure that content is relevant, is relevant and high quality to that situation as possible. So that's something that supervisors or seniors can take on as a role.
And briefly, just to finish up, what do you think, looking ahead, what do you think AI is going to bring us in relation to Dynamics 365 Contact Center in the next 3 to 5 years, let's say?
I'd love to have a crystal ball. I'm pretty close with Microsoft. I'm an MVP for the product. So obviously I can see roadmap, but actually thinking beyond that, I think we're going to see personalization, more personalization at scale come into the platform. Another thing so that's essentially just customers receiving a more refined, personalized service, where the digital side of it, for example, the tone that's used, the language that's used with that customer could be more personal rather than just being generic. So again, it's looking at history of what's gone on with that customer, the digital language, the spoken language, and it is training itself so it can then speak and relate to that person in a very personalized way, as well as doing all the things around offering things that are relevant to that customer because they've asked for X, Y, and Z before. The autonomous agents that we have already. So I'm just writing an article now for it. Actually, there's a LinkedIn post rather. There's 3 at the moment going through public preview: customer intent, knowledge management, and case management. I should know what they are. I'm just writing about it. But those agents, I think, are the first of many. So we are talking about agents at scale, to help us in the workplace. But I think in the contact center, we could see further agents. One area of the product which is being developed at pace is on workforce management. And you could see a workforce management agent, for example. So that's something I'd like to see. So essentially, rather than a service leader having to trawl through and make multiple changes to shifts and allocation of agents, etc., the platform is already providing intelligence, but there could be some autonomous delivery of that service, and it could just be the service leader who's going in to check what's been set up in terms of shift patterns, etc. Another thing is kind of, um, yeah, just kind of more proactive customer engagement, and predictive. Now, again, I might be dreaming a little bit here. Who knows? But I think there's the potential for, based on patterns of how a customer's dealing with a contact center, um, is with sufficient information and engagement from a customer, you could look at patterns and you could almost predict activity and inbound activity, and to some degree, maybe not necessarily prevent that, but be proactive about it and reach out to the customer. So it could be, something to do with a product. It could be, for example, purchase of a product on a regular basis, an upsell. So again, we could have autonomous agents that are reaching out to a customer to try and help them. Or if they've had a new product, again, we kind of see, tends to be like email conversation goes on. They bought something, they then get a follow-up email or whatever. That could now be through other digital channels. It could be through something like WhatsApp,
Yeah.
just to make sure they're okay, they're happy with the product, everything's gone okay, what can we do to help you? So a more proactive approach to customer service, I think we could see.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see more anticipating of need rather than just reacting
Yes,
to need. And
absolutely.
we will look forward to receiving multiple WhatsApps about, do you want to buy something?
Yeah, across multiple channels.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining me today. It's been really interesting to talk through this with you. And of course, as this evolves, we'll be keeping abreast of it on UC Today. So, yeah, thank you to our viewers for joining us as well. Please do like and subscribe to this channel for more updates. So, thank you, Chris, and have a good day.
Thanks a lot.